the lifelines which the insurgents had are drying up, and because of Chinese pressure. So it's a big pressure because you have something called the vast state army,
Yeah.
which is the nodal, supported by China. It's the hub which feeds the rebel groups in terms of weaponry and other stuff.
You're on the gist on Strat News Global. I'm Surya Gangadhar. Myanmar's general turned president, Min Aung Hlaing, is in town. He was in Bodh Gaya over the weekend, did the usual rituals associated with the Buddhist site. He met the National Security Advisor Ajit Doval yesterday, and today he had a round of discussions with the Prime Minister. Things are yet to come out on the MEA site, but I have with me Atul Aneja. He's a strategic analyst. He writes on Myanmar. In fact, he was there about, I think, 2 months ago. Atul, is that sometime during
Yeah,
elections?
elections. So I was there in end of December last year.
Oh, cool, cool. So that's recent. And our topic, we're going to look at General Aung Hlaing's visit, and of course, with an eye on all the issues that are relevant for India. So, Atul, let's begin with first of all the state of the civil war. What is it? Is the army winning? Is they losing? What's the situation?
I think they are making very steady progress, Surya. I would go to the extent that now they are on a roll, really. And there are reasons why this change has taken place compared to what it was, let's say, in 2024, when they had lost major chunks of the territory. There were estimates at that time saying that they controlled only 20%. But
Yeah.
there's been a big turnaround, and I think that's a real story. How this turnaround came about, and what did the military do right, which was not doing earlier, which created this shift, this change.
So, what did they do?
Okay, Surya, there are three things. One is that they had to completely modify the military tactics. So first is the military side of it, if you look at it. Because they were being attacked by drones from the other side, the conventional military tactics, infantry columns going in a very conventional way, that was not working. The battlefield demanded tactical changes, and which they did. And the first major change was that they got majorly into drone warfare, the use of drones, including FPVs, where which are the most one of the most advanced drones you see in the Ukraine Russia conflict,
Conflict.
which is going on, which are sort of guided drones. You can sort of, it's like a pilot viewing a certain site and just taking the drone wherever it wants to. So that's a the FPVs came into the picture. Iranians have been using it as well in the other theater in the Gulf. So one is extensive use of drones, but the problem arose also in terms of boots on the ground. This was a huge problem which they were having. So that went into that conscription drive. People thought that if you do conscription, there's going to be internal revolt in the army, and people are going to run away or they're going to go to other countries. That exodus has not taken place. In fact, that was a real game changer, because that gave them, because they were fighting on multiple fronts and didn't have enough people to do that. So that was a second element, the boots on the ground element through conscription, which brought this change. Actually, there are four elements, and the third is the diplomatic one, because you see, the military government read it very correctly, the requirements of some of its key neighbors, especially, let's say, the Chinese. The Chinese were very clear that they wanted this corridor from Kunming to Chokfu, which is on the Bay of Bengal. Now,
Yeah.
Chokfu is a deep water port, something like what they're doing in Gwadar. So this is exactly what they're doing here. Because the American pressure was coming on China, they needed sort of a bypass from Malacca. So they needed the China-Myanmar economic corridor. Now that's where the bargaining starts. That okay, you guys need the China-Myanmar economic corridor, then you help us clear the rebel-held areas, especially in the north, which are close to the Chinese border. And that's exactly what the Chinese do. They pressurized big time on militant groups or insurgent groups on which they had a hold traditionally. including the MNDA, TN. This is called the Brotherhood Alliance. So there's three particular groups which are most important: MNDA, TNLA, and Arakan Army. So these were the three part of the Brotherhood Army. So Brotherhood Alliance, Brotherhood Alliance. So they started imposing pressure. That is the Chinese. One first was MNDA. So there's this place called Lashio. If you go south from Kunming, this is a very major garrison town as well. It's a critical node in terms of strategic importance. So the military got Lashio because the Chinese pressurized the MNDA to do it, and the similar pressure came on the other group called the Tang National Liberation Army, or the
Yeah.
TNLA. So, because you needed this China-Myanmar economic corridor, the Chinese did a lot of heavy lifting to get these groups out of the way. So that's where the military started gaining. But this is more diplomatic than military. But because you did not have to concentrate so many troops in the north, then you started moving troops another way in accordance with the new tactics which they adopted. Because apart from drones and manpower, the third was the use of artillery and air power generally. So I think that's what happened. The strategy was very clear. First, don't lose the main cities, the hubs of Myanmar, which would be Yangon, which would be Mandalay. Keep that. So they never fell to the rebels. Chokfu, because that is critical for the Chinese. So you had, first of all, controlled these areas, and then you started moving and clearing the countryside. And I think now is the time that this is their new tactics plus the diplomatic support. Plus, finally, I'd add the Russian support which came in. When I talk to you about drones, one of the Chinese drones which are coming, but these FPVs and all are coming from Russia. Min Aung Hlaing has made 5 visits to Russia between 2021, when the military takeover took place, and now. So the Russian connection is very strong when it comes to advanced weaponry plus tactics, use of jammers, for example. Even the rebels were using drones. So how do you jam those drones? That experience of the Ukraine theater, which Russia had, Ukraine, was passed on to the military government here for their own purpose. So, and finally, Surya, is the external support which the rebels were getting, which was from the Americans through a NGO network, through sanctuaries inside Thailand, for example, across the border, medical support, propaganda support, Irrawaddy, DVP, and Radio Free Asia. I mean, they were all there on the media onslaught against sort of damning the government as calling it the junta and human rights violator, etc., etc. So that entire machinery has taken a big hit after Trump administration came in, because USAID has been shut down, which was the main channel of funding. So has been the National Endowment for Democracy, which was another channel which was doing this funding for that. And the military is not getting, that is the opposition military called the PDF, People's Defense Forces. Their lifeline is also virtually cut. So when you combine these factors, the Chinese factor, the US factor, the change in military tactics, when you combine all these three, I can say now with full confidence that it's almost game, set, and match for the military. It's a matter of time before they gain hold of most of the rest of the country.
What did India do?
Well, India's concern was, number one, India's concern was, let's say, also geostrategic. One was the Asian Trilateral Highway. And that is linked to a Northeast story. To get Northeast, security inside the Northeast, and second, give the rise of the Northeast through connectivity to Sitwe port. Through the Trilateral Highway was doing part of it, which is the Manipur side of it, More and Tamu, and then you go further down towards Mandalay, and then from Mandalay to the Thai border and to Mysore. So this was the Asian Trilateral Highway. So this was of prime importance to India because, frankly, it's a strategic project. It brings India to the doorstep of the Pacific Ocean. So it's the east-west spine of new connectivity corridors which India is building. So something like you want to finally link this with IMEC, which is a separate story, but this is a very ambitious project, the Asian Trilateral Highway. So India, first thing, was very keen that those areas which are obstructing, it is 70% built, but there are 30% areas, especially closer to the Thai border, which are infested with insurgent groups. So it is the stability of Myanmar is in greatly both in India's interest and Chinese interest, because here
Yeah.
their interests are converging. So that was India's main motivation. So how to help it around? So I think India played a balancing act. It did not go like Russia or the Chinese pumping the military government with weaponry, but I think intelligence support and other non-visible aspects of support would have gone from India to Myanmar, and that is one of the reasons. And the Myanmar people think that you need India as much as you do China and Russia. So India falls very much. Plus, it's a large market. Plus, the soft power of India in terms of
Yeah.
medical, hospital, etc. Those are very much strong. Your PTMs and others. This digital infrastructure, which is very much global south oriented. These are things which Myanmar needs from India as well. So the plus is a comfort level, Surya. I think we were part of the British Empire. There's a historical legacy to that. And I've been a frequent visitor to Myanmar now. I mean, there's a natural sort of bind and comfort level between the people of Myanmar and India, which is being reflected in the leadership as well. But in the long run, India is huge for them, and the corridor is very important. The Asian Trilateral Highway, and the other one, which is the Kaladan project, which is linking Mizoram with the port of Satwe. So I think there are geo-economic considerations for India. There are people-to-people considerations for India, and vice versa for the government of Myanmar. India is one of the key pivots on which their foreign policy is riding, along with Russia and China.
The reports I read suggest that the army controls around 20% of the territory of Myanmar. You also mentioned that figure. Is that really the case? Is it more? What is it?
It's more, because it's a very dynamic situation, Surya. Because only day before yesterday, Phalam, which is in the Chin state, that
Yeah.
fell so the momentum shift is very, very clear. So it's not a static situation. What you are saying is 2024 or the beginning of 2025, before all these new tactics and all came in, and before the diplomatic support came in. So now that's not the case. I won't have an exact figure how much percentage it controls, but if you look at the situation as you foresee in terms of dominance is coming in big time, and because of the other reasons that the lifelines which the insurgents had are drying up, and because of Chinese pressure, so it's a big pressure, because you have something called the vast state army,
Yeah.
which is the nodal, supported by China. It's the hub which feeds the rebel groups in terms of weaponry and other stuff. And the vast state army, because of Chinese pressure, has told the rebel groups that we are not going to supply you with the kind of feedstock we were doing earlier. So those are heavy blows from the logistic perspective, which have hit the insurgent groups. And plus, as I said, the Trump factor, the external ecosystem has dried up virtually for them. So when you combine it, I think today it may be 40%, 50%, but it's going. The writing on the wall is now there. The dominance or the upper hand is decisive. It's not going to go away anymore. So if you think that it's a 50% chance that the government may cave in to the rebel, that's not happening. The tide has turned. Now the tide has not unfurled or gone fully ahead, but it's turned, and there's no coming back, as I see it. So, and I think India understands it well, and could be one of the factors why we were hesitating. We never invited Minanglai earlier before the elections for a
Yeah.
state visit to India, but I think we read the tea leaves well as well. And therefore this visit. I just want to add one small point. I think if you look at the bigger picture, Surya, the bigger picture is really unnoticed. The pivot in which the Myanmar government carried out in terms of its foreign policy. They were being sanctioned by the West, isolated. The war front was going badly. So the pivot is to non-Western, not only countries, which is Russia, India, China, but the pivot is to new organizations, or the new world order, with
Mm-hmm.
non-Western world order which is emerging, which is the BRICS, which is
Yeah.
the SCO. So you shifted from ASEAN, which are Western oriented networks,
Yeah.
completely to the multipolar world associations, especially BRICS. You're knocking on the door of that. You already observer status in SCO,
Yeah.
and the third organization, which they're going to get into, I think, quite soon, is the Eurasian Economic Union. So the pivot to the north, China, Eurasia, Russia, and the new political sort of multilateral organizations which are coming to that, along with India. I think that clarity came in, that there's no point in hanging on to the old world, no point in depending on the ASEAN and the ecosystem which goes along with it, which ends up in the United States and Europe. So that a very deliberate shift which takes place, uh, I think around 24, 25. I think that is something which we need to note, because the ecosystem which they have built now of support, the new lifelines have been created. Something which Iran has done in the
Yeah.
other theater, Iran and China. So it is able to sort of survive the Trump onslaught. So something similar has happened, that you have pivoted to the non-Western world, which is the multipolar world, and within the multipolar world, the three key poles: China, India, Russia. So that shift, the pivot away from towards Eurasia and Asia, away from the Western ecosystem, has been very deliberate, and I think one of the main causes for why they have survived. And now they're on the threshold. Frankly, if you talk to the Myanmar people now, or the government now after the elections, now they're looking forward, that how do we consolidate and actually go ahead in making Myanmar into a middle power. That is the narrative which is coming in. How do we expand the connectivity of China Myanmar economic corridor, Asian uh, trilateral highway? What next? I mean, these are the can we link Kunming to Moscow and join with the Eurasian Economic Union? It's possible, because there's a rail link from Kunming to Beijing and from Beijing to Moscow. So if you can build a railway, let's say from Mandalay to Kunming, which is a project as part of the CMEC, that is China Myanmar Economic Corridor, then you've actually hooked on right up to Russia. And then the next thought which comes is, okay, if Mandalay is the hub, then if you extend it west and link it to More in India, of course, we
Yeah.
have to build a railway from in Manipur, inside Manipur, Jabrim is the, if I remember, I'm not sure whether I got that name right. And Mandalay is a project which one is thinking about. Then you have this huge connectivity corridors: Myanmar, Mandalay, the hub, Kunming and west towards Russia and Europe, and then the Indian network connecting India with Mandalay, and then India also hooks on to the pan Eurasian railway network. So these are the thoughts which the military is now thinking about. So from survival mentality is now developmental mentality. That what next? Because the opposition, when we talk about, is down, not just the military opposition, Surya,
Yeah.
but even
Yeah.
civil society opposition, which came from Aung San Suu Kyi, etc., which was so dependent on international NGOs, the US Senate, and the Burma Act. So the US pipeline has dried up even for the civilian opposition. So the military thinks that now is the time, after the election, that we have the space now. Now, let's not just be on a survival mode, but get proactive in terms of development and getting connectivity through structurally link with this RIC grouping and the BRICS, so that even when the tide turns against them, so that when there's no Trump around, or if the Democrats come back, you have consolidated your lifelines. So that is a broad geopolitical imagination with which this new government is moving.
So, can General President Ong Lang deliver? I presume that's why he's here, and I'm
Oh yes.
sure.
So
Yeah,
he's
go
on a
ahead.
high, to be honest,
Huh.
from a position of completely precarious condition, when the country was falling apart, to where he is now, the present, having done the elections and getting quoted. See, Chinese had a state visit of him even before the
Yeah.
elections.
Yeah.
Russians 5 visits. Putin had state visits for him. But now India, this is a global signal that I'm strong, big powers or the rising powers are with me now. Who wants
Yeah.
to bother about Europe and US? I have the new world with me. So he is in a high, and I think he would try and see. It's very interesting, Surya. The concept of the Tetmadaw, which is the government, they think they're the inheritors of the warrior kings who ruled
Mhm.
Bagan in 1400, 1500 onwards,
Yeah. Mm.
who were responsible, who had the responsibility of not only being military leaders but being guarantors of the state. So the Tatmadar's mentality is that we are the guarantor of stability of the state and for its well-being. So you inherit that ideology as well. So if you look at General Aung San, the founder of Myanmar, or
Yeah.
General Navin actually developed a full theory that when you have the warrior king mentality along with Buddhism, and he got socialism into it, which proved a disaster because the economy just went south.
Yeah.
But that enduring line of thought that we are the guardians, and Tetmadaw or the military has to perform that guardianship role. I think Minang Lai would see himself in that tradition as an extension of these leaders, military leaders, who in any way are reflecting the core personality, core strategic personality of Myanmar, rooted in those three kings, which they sort of they virtually worship.
Atul, from what I've read about Myanmar in the past, in the recent past, are you saying that was there a division among the dominant Burman community? Is that now shifted towards the military? Is it purely ethnic, the Burmans versus the rest?
That's a great question, Surya, because that is the biggest fault line. You have about 69% of the Bamar or Burman population, which is
Hmm.
going along the Irrawaddy River Delta onwards, not mostly with the area where there is food produced, and which is the richest area, which
Yeah.
is the Irrawaddy, along the Irrawaddy River. That's where the dominant population is. Then you go to the highlands. From historical reasons, it is the British who recruited the non-Bamar population, especially the Karen group, into
Yeah.
the military. So just as we have the Assam rifles, there was a Karen rifles, there was a Kachin rifles. So the
Hmm.
minorities always went to the Western economic ecosystem. The British did not deliberately recruit the Bamars into their campaigns. So that separation, those fault lines have become hardened, and also Christianity played a role because Bamars are hardcore Buddhists, whereas
Hmm.
most of the not all, there are some who are Buddhist even among the minorities, but a large chunk are Christians. So that particular element also hardens this divide within it. Plus, I think apart from 1947, they had this conference which Aung San tried, the Panglong conference, where there was an attempted reconciliation of
Yeah.
all the minorities in the Bamar population. I think that they have not done well. So as I see, the challenge before Menonglai right now is to get internal reconciliation going, because that's a fault line which has not been bridged despite all the military gains. But I think that will be his responsibility. I think two responsibilities. One is expand the imagination of the geoeconomic side, which is that you have to build larger corridors. Don't be satisfied with that to anchor yourself. But the second major responsibility now is that now that you got elected, it is your responsibility to get the reconciliation done. I think that
Hmm.
dialogue has to start. And actually, to be honest, that dialogue can start within the framework of the 2008 constitution, which gives very specific privileges to the military in the system. There are many federal features inside the 2008 constitution which have remained completely underexploited, and which gives decentralization, legally gives decentralization, financial empowerment to the local bodies and local governments. I think though, so this problem which the military had is that we are fixated to the 2008 constitution. I understand that logic, but please, within that 2008 constitution, there are so many provisions. Use them to get a good peace process going, because the country has to heal within itself.
Yeah.
There may be physical domination, others, Surya, but even all these connectivity projects which you talked about, Asian Trilateral, CMEC, they're not going to work if you are not going to get the internal social cohesion going. I think that's the major unfinished task. And if you really want to, that is, if the government, presently elected government, wants to go and turn Myanmar into a middle power, internal reconciliation is going to be a must, and that is where the focus should lie. And if countries like India, I think because we have from the northeast connections into the minority areas of Myanmar, if we can help, I think we should. You can't do it minus the government. Work with
Yep.
the government after this visit, and then get the peace process, at least areas where you have leverages, getting into a dialogue mode, and have another Panglong, which is long required. If you do that, then I think this country, with its resources and with its population, young people, has an extremely bright future. But that is the big missing link right now, Surya, the internal reconciliation. And I think the time has come that this dialogue process, because the military environment has given you space now. You can, from a position of not from a defensive position now anymore, from parity, if not dominance. So this is it. That it might disappear quite soon. This window which has opened.
Yeah.
I think the military government the newly elected government has to make use of this space, which itself it has created through very, very innovative steps, I would say. But do it now.
What about the India-Myanmar border? Is there any indication that the general has reinforced his control over there? Are we seeing a diminishing of insurgent activities?
Oh yes, there's been visible reduction of insurgent activity, but there's a salient. If you cross Tamu and you go for the Yagi area, Yagi Plateau, it's a very difficult terrain, and which is also infested with the insurgent groups, which not infested, but at least impacted by insurgent groups. Those are specific now areas which you need to address. And I think during this visit, I'm sure our government would have, and our people would have reinforced this, that you have to clear that area, because for us that is very, very important now. New lifeline, new corridors, and so these particular pockets have to be cleared. I think it can be done now that they are on a roll. But suppose you have 5 targets with you, you may not do one, which is most important to anyone. So those kind of nudging now as to if you want our support, which we are giving you diplomatically and otherwise, symbolically, we have done it already, and quite substantially, I'm sure. In that case, you must do that part, which gets the Asian Trilateral Highway and the Kaladan project, Surya. I and you have been covering that for
I know. For years,
right? Yes. So that particular area, for example, once the corridor from Mizoram, Zurunpo is the checkpoint. You cross that and you go to a place called Paletwa. The Kaladan River is coming from the north. It's right all in Myanmar territory. At Paletwa, it becomes navigable. And so, you take a road from Mizoram into Paletwa, and then you offload your containers onto ships, which can then go into Sitwe. But Paletwa is under the control of the Arakan army. I mean, that's again a big problem, because Arakan, among all the insurgent groups we spoke about, MNDA, TNLA, of the Brotherhood Alliance, the one which is out of control is the Arakan army. And this also on the Bangladesh border, by the way. So this is very critical. Now, that again, if you look from a military perspective, if there is something to work to be done, really, other side, they're going on a roll. Arakan army, still an obstacle. You're not militarily dominant in that area. And then you have to protect both Sitwe and Chokfu. And because these are both in the Rakhine state.
Have we established any communication links with the Arakan army?
You see, there are various advices which go that, strike a deal with Arakan army. That's the usual way. There may be some monetary dimension to that, and you get your way. I think that strategy is going to be completely harmful because it will completely alienate the core of Myanmar, which is the new government. So whatever has to be done with the Arakan army, I would say that do it in jointly with the military, or at least in confidence with the military. I know it's very important for us to get the Kaladan corridor, but we can't lose the big picture, which is the support of the Myanmar state, which is connecting with China and it's connecting with Russia. So that you got to have the state with you, and at the same time you got to sort out this problem. This tactical temptation of strike a deal and let's get it through would have very long-term harmful effects, in my view.
So we'll have to wait.
We'll have to wait and work with them, share intelligence, do whatever, and establish a dialogue. Maybe I'm sure the Myanmar military has their intelligence services will be dialoguing with the Arakan army through back channels, etc. So you got to work on the Arakan army, because that is for me. I'm not so worried about the Asian Trilateral Highway, which is going straight. I'm more worried about the Kaladan project, because Arakan army is the real problem, and unless we sort that out, then that project will not go through.
Are we, with reference to the Arakan army, is it opposed to us in any way? Is it?
I don't know, Surya, but it's interesting because first thing is they're completely Buddhist, hardcore Buddhist, the Arakan army, right? And I have not seen any statements coming out of the Arakan army which is anti-India. So I think there is possibly an equation to the Arakan army, and so it's not a force which is hostile to us.
Okay.
So I think that's where India may be at some advantage to help the Myanmar government, because don't know exactly what relationship the Tatmadaw has with the Arakan army. And if they've been fighting them, it may not be that great. And maybe India can help in this process of facilitating a dialogue between the government of Myanmar and the Arakan army, because we have something at stake there. It may be an initiative worth taking, if not already taken.
So last question, Atul. What happens now to people like Aung San Suu Kyi, what happens to the NUG, which even has an office here in Delhi? I mean, what happens to them?
I think it's game, set, and match against them. Sorry, but they lost it. And because they were so externally dependent, Surya, that whole ecosystem was external. If you see Aung San Suu Kyi's husband, was the one who actually facilitated a Nobel. That's a very interesting statement, how he worked with Václav Havel, the Nobel Committee, through his Oxford network, and got her the Nobel. And actually was an architect of this huge ecosystem of NGOs and human rights groups. And it was an era of Obama's era. So, that whole ecosystem with the Trump's coming is gone. Second problem for Aung San Suu Kyi is that after the Rohingya crisis of 2017, she sided with the military. I mean, she went with the national Bamar sentiment and opposed them. As a result, she alienated a large number of her old friends from the liberal internationalists in the West. And then to compensate that, she tried to strike a deal with China. So that's a very interesting twist in Aung San Suu Kyi's life. As I see it now, she's quite friendless because the West is not supporting her. She has moved towards China. And to be honest, I think it's time that the military really talk to her and, have an understanding with her, because symbolically she remains very important.
She has something.
I don't think she's interested anymore in getting politically involved. By the way, she has been moved away from jail to house arrest about a month ago, or less than that. So those signs are coming in. But if the military, if the government of the day and Aung San Suu Kyi, I think it's not improbable now that they can come to some kind of understanding, which will help in the healing process which you're talking about. Because independently of her external linkages, because she's a daughter of General Aung San, and she has got a lot of support in the Bamar community, continues to have, independently of what happened. So her neutrality, in fact, or a tacit kind of support, depending on how you want to call it, I think it's time, and they're probably reaching out to her that okay, you lost your Western friends, you wanted to move to the other side, pivot side. Let's we are not There's no real fundamental contradiction in our goals anymore. So
Yeah.
why not start a dialogue which can help in the healing of Myanmar and its rise as a middle power.
Very interesting. Atul, I think we'll have to leave it there, but a lot of stuff to chew on, and a lot of this is, in fact, a little new to me because I haven't been following Myanmar that closely. But clearly, this visit of the Myanmar president has a lot of, in that sense, stakes for India.
Absolutely.
Let's
Absolutely.
see what the MEA comes out with. For now, I think Atul, thanks very much. Lots of insight there. Lots of stuff to chew on, as I said. Hopefully, one should be able to make it to Myanmar at some point. Thanks very
Of course,
much.
it's very important. It's very important that Surya, people like you go there and see things on the ground. Because for me, the perceptions changed after my visits to Myanmar and travel in Myanmar. It's not what you read in The Economist.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Atul. Thanks very much.
Okay, Surya, thank you. Welcome.
That's all we have in this edition of The Gist. Do subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on social media.